Prithvi Shantirantariksha Shantir Dyau Shantir Disha Shantiravantara Disha Shantiragni Shantir Vayu Shantiraditya Shantir Chandrama Shantir Nakshatrani Shantirapa Shantiroshadaya Shantir Vanaspataya Shantir Gau Shantiraja Shantirashva Shantir Purusha Shantir Brahma Shantir Brahmana Shantir Shantireva Shanti Shantir Me Astu Shantihi. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra Sukhinas Santu, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet, Sarvastaratu Durgani, Sarvo Bhadrani Pashyatu, Sarvas Sadbuddhimapnotu, Sarvas Sarvatra Nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirma Edhi Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So we begin today on chapter 11. That's on page 316 if you're following this edition of the Gita. So the name of this chapter is Vishwa Rupa Darshana Yoga. Vishwa is universe, Rupa is the form, Darshana is perception or seeing, and yoga. So this is the yoga in which Krishna reveals his universal form, his cosmic form. So this is the second time in the Gita you find some movement. So in the very first chapter of the Gita, you see there's some activity going on. There's all these, the soldiers on both sides have gathered and they blow their conches, ready for battle. And Krishna moves the chariot in between the two armies. So you see some movement and some drama, if you like. And then from chapter 2 through 10, we found an extensive teaching of Krishna. And now here, chapter 11 is another one very significant movement you see. Because here is, for the first time, besides the teaching that Krishna was giving, you find a new revelation being given to Arjuna, in which Krishna reveals his universal form. Before we closed for the summer, we concluded the 10th chapter. And if you look at the last verse of the 10th chapter, it says, "But of what avail is it to you to know all these details? I exist pervading this entire universe by a portion of myself." So most of the 10th chapter that we saw showed the manifestation of the divine through all of these diversity that we see in the world around us. And Krishna concluded by saying that everything that you see in this universe, which is visible and not visible to our senses, is only a little portion of myself. Now, when you say something like that, it's not surprising that Arjuna then is curious. Well, if all of this is only just a little portion of yourself, how are you in your complete self? I'm curious. I want to know how you appear in your totality. So the universe that we see is actually a very limited universe. First of all, what we see around us is limited by the equipment that we have. And the only equipment that we have is really this body and mind. And there are the five senses, the sense of seeing, the sound, touch. So our universe really is the data, the information that comes to us in the form of visuals, in the form of sound, in the form of smell, in the form of taste, and in the form of touch. That is the universe that we see. And even the sounds and the sights that we see are very limited. We know the range of our eyes is limited. Well, you can, on a clear day, you might be able to see up to a distance, but really, no matter how, I might go on the highest peak, and still if I want to take a look at Florida from here, well, my eyesight won't go up to that point, even if there is no obstruction on the way. So there is a limit to how much my eyes can see. There is also something might be very close to me, and yet if it is not within the range of the frequencies that my eyes can see, I won't be able to see it. Well, when it's dark, well, now I can see it because there is light here. If this room is pitch dark, I won't be able to see it, but maybe cats can. So it's not just the distance, but it's also the range. So we can see things only within a certain range. We can hear sounds within a certain range. We can smell, I mean, a dog's world will be very different than our world. So the world that we see and encounter is limited by the equipment that we have. Now, of course, through technology, we are able to kind of extend the range of what we see. Like, you can't really use the word see. For instance, now, with the help of equipment, I might be able to get hold of or at least be aware of the magnetic forces around me, or the forces of electricity and so on. I can't see them. I can't even sense them, but maybe some equipment can do it. And essentially, I'm not really feeling magnetism. At least I'm seeing some way the presence of these forces through some kind of a device and correlate it with some movement somewhere. That's all that we can do. All this is to show that the world that we encounter itself is limited, but that which we encounter is a limited portion of the limited world. And so no one has seen the world in its totality. Even the world in its totality would be only a small portion of the infinite divine. So really, we are think about it this way. When we want to study something, we want to study it. We need all the information about it if you want to get a complete picture about that thing. If we have only a kind of a narrow window into it, our study can never be perfect because we only are able to see a part of the picture. So no matter how much we look at the world, our understanding of even the material universe is going to remain limited just because of the limited equipment that we have. And what the Gita's point is that reality, the truth, which is much vaster than even this material universe. And so what Arjuna now is going to seek in this chapter is like asking Krishna, just show me as you really are. You have mentioned to me about all these different manifestations in the world. We can kind of try to see, well, God is there in the hearts of people around me. God is present everywhere. I mean, these are good ideas to contemplate on. But what is it to stand in the presence of God? And God as God is. So that is the idea. And so we begin, the first 4 verses are actually the words that Arjuna speaks. So let's chant together. Arjuna uvacha madanugrahaya paramam guhyam adhyatma saudnitam yatvayoktam vachastena mohoyam vigato mama. Arjuna said, by the supreme and secret discourse known as Adhyatma that you have delivered for favoring me, this delusion of mine has been destroyed. The word guhyam, translated as secret here, really means profound. It's not secret in the sense that it's not something that should be hidden from others. It's secret in the sense that it's so profound that unless and until I open my heart to it, it's going to remain a secret from me. It's like a language. If I learn a language, then what is being said is no more a secret. But if I don't understand the language, then it just sound. Then I wouldn't know what's going on. The discourse known as Adhyatma, the word Adhyatma really means the distinction between the real me and the unreal me, the distinction between the self and not self. This was the problem with Arjuna, if you remember, that he's gone to war. On the other side, he sees not only the enemy, but the enemy, among the enemy, his own people. Members of his family, his friends, his uncles, his grandfather. And even if he had not seen that they were his own people, still they were human beings. And Arjuna's problem is, how can I kill them? How is killing permissible? Is war a great idea? And Krishna never really goes into that discussion. He never says, oh, war is wonderful, just go and kill. That's not the point. The point here is, Arjuna is confused that in this stage of my life, the juncture in which I stand, what is my duty? What is it that I should do? And so what Krishna goes here into discussing is, when you say, what is it that I should do? Who is this I that you are speaking about? When you speak about my duty, whose duty are you referring to? What is the nature of the being who is confused? When you speak about, in a war, I kill these people, who are you? Are you the real killer? When you kill someone, what is it that is exactly being killed? Now, most people don't think about it in these terms at all. I mean, it's like, oh, you have killed this person. But, I mean, essentially, even if you think about when one person kills another person, what is exactly happening? I mean, what are you actually seeing before you? Well, any killing would involve that by whatever means, the person who was living in front is no more living. Well, that's what killing is. So what does life mean? The body that moved in front of me is now become immobile. I don't see a sign of life there. So has that person been killed, or has that body been destroyed? Is destroying a body the same as destroying a person? So what is the nature of that person? Are we simply the body? If we are simply the body, then of course, when the body is killed, the person is gone. But if we are more than the body, then we have to think about it. Then maybe if the body is destroyed, the one who is inside the body may still be there. Again, when we say someone is killing the other, what is essentially happening is, so there's one body holding some weapon, is destroying another body. The two people involved in any killing, are they just bodies, or there is something more than that? And then, of course, there is a discussion we saw in the earlier chapters that when we speak about personhood, that I, as a human being, I'm not just the body. That within the body, there is the mind, there is the ego, there is the thoughts, there is emotions. Now, there's a big discussion, and we won't go into it today, about whether mind is a distinct entity, distinct from the brain. Now, the material scientific view is that there is no such thing as a mind. Everything can be reduced to just the neurological activity in the brain. Because there is a correlation. When they have studied, when people become happy, certain parts of the brain get lighted up. There's some activity. So they have mapped out. There is, even now, we don't know enough about the brain, but what little we know that the different emotions, the different forms of cognition, understanding, feeling, it's some kind of a mapping has been done. Now, all scientific experiments dealing with consciousness essentially just map out what changes are occurring in the brain is the result of certain emotions or certain perceptions that occur. So what is being seen is more a correlation of activities, that this is happening in the brain and these are the emotions that a person shows. Now, showing a correlation is not really showing an identity between the two. Nor does it prove the causal relation, nor does it say that because this activity occurred in the brain, this person is happy. So we don't know whether because the person is happy, there was a change in the brain, or because there was change in the brain, the person is happy. So this causal relationship is also unclear. So according to material sciences, there is no such thing as a mind at all. When a person dies, that's the end. There is no mind, there is no consciousness, nothing, finished. But the Gita and all spiritual traditions believe that there is a reality beyond just this physical body that we have. That even when a person dies, even when the brain is destroyed, the heart stops functioning, the person still lives. Now, oftentimes, this kind of a thing is relegated to a matter of belief. Oh, these religious people, they believe that someone has gone to heaven or someone has gone there. And so, because there is no material evidence for it, scientists tend to either disregard it or just kind of not even take it seriously. The Gita wants us to take it seriously because while it cannot be proved objectively, it can be intuited subjectively. So one thing that science didn't do a lot before, but is kind of coming to accept a little bit, today is the role the experimenter plays in the experiment itself. And it becomes more apparent when you are dealing with the subatomic particles. And that's the whole thing about this quantum physics and so on, that when you are not simply an observer in an experiment, you are a participator. Your very role of act of seeing it changes what you are seeing. So there is some kind of a meeting point between the subjective sciences and the objective sciences, but there is still a long way to go. So what Krishna speaks to Arjuna here is about the nature of the self, the real person, and the unreal shell outside. And so what Arjuna says is, this great discourse, this profound teaching that you have given me, the delusion of mine is destroyed. He is being a little bit too hasty, I think. If his delusion were destroyed, the Gita would have ended on chapter 11. We know it goes up to chapter 18. So I imagine if you would allow ourselves a little bit of speculation, when Arjuna said this delusion of mine has been destroyed, we can kind of see Krishna smiling a little bit, saying, oh, okay, not yet, not yet. Illusion is still there, but at least this is what Arjuna feels, that, oh, you have given me this teaching, I don't have any doubts anymore. As we will see later on, he still has doubts. Verse 2. Bhavapyayau hi bhutanam Shrutau vistarasho maya Tvattav kamalapatraksha Mahatmyamapi chavyayam. Verily, about the origin and dissolution of beings I have heard from you in detail, so also, O lotus-eyed one, about your inexhaustible greatness. You can see in the commentary, Krishna says in chapter 7, I am the origin of the entire universe as also its destroyer. So when Arjuna says, I've heard about the origin and dissolution of beings, he's referring to that teaching given in chapter 7, that how everything comes from the divine and everything returns to the divine. The source from which we all come is same, and the place we all go to is the same as well. And about the inexhaustible greatness, again in chapters 7, 9, and even 11, we see the greatness, the infinitude, and the power of that divine being described. Verse 3. Evametat yathat tattvam Atmanam Parameshvara Drashtumichhami te rupam Aishwaram Purushottama. What you say about yourself, O great Lord, is just so. O best of persons, I desire to see your divine form. So Arjuna says, whatever you have said up to this point, I have no doubt at all. I accept it. I know that you are telling me the truth. And yet, I want to see your divine form. I have seen and accepted and understand what you mean by your manifestations in this world. But I'm very curious to see how you really are in your own form. Verse 4. Manyase yadi tat shakyam Maya drashtumiti prabho Yogeshvara tato me tvam Darshayatmanam avyayam. O Lord, if you think that form of yours can be seen by me, then, O Lord of yogis, show me your eternal self. I think Arjuna is smart. He understands that if it were easy to see that form, he would have seen it. He wouldn't have even needed Krishna's help. The fact that he hadn't seen it still up to that stage in life, he knew that it's not so easy. It may not be that simple. And that's why he says, if you think it's possible for me to see that form, in other words, if you think I'm fit to see that form, please show it to me. Oftentimes, sometimes people say, well, if God exists, why don't I see God? But the fact that I don't see God is not a proof for God's non-existence. Sometimes it is said, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. That is, just because I don't see God is not a proof that God doesn't exist. Maybe God doesn't want to show to me. Maybe I'm not fit to see. Well, to some sense, there are some people who wonder if there is extraterrestrial life, aliens, whether there is life in some other part of this universe, maybe in some other galaxy or something. And of course, there's a lot of, some people believe in it, some people say, oh, this is the only place there is life, and there is no way to know either way. It just depends on whatever you believe. That's fine. My point is only this. If we don't believe in alien life, which is fine, but if the only reason we have for not believing in it is, well, if there are aliens, why haven't they shown up to this point? Why haven't they tried to get in touch with us? If that's the only reason we have and there is no other reason, then I think that's not a sufficient reason. Because we kind of assume that we are people worth getting into touch with. Why would, maybe it, again, this is just pure speculation, maybe there is some higher forms of life somewhere, and they don't want to get in touch with us. And so the fact that they haven't got into touch with us is no proof that they don't exist. Now, I'm not like some person who believes in life. I'm just trying to apply logic here, that we need some better reasoning to deny the existence of something that we have never seen. And I just want to apply that same reasoning here. Even people who don't believe in God say, well, if there is God, why don't I see God? Well, if I don't see God, that is not enough of a reason to believe that God doesn't exist. And so that's why this is a very good way that Arjuna puts it here. If you think that it's possible for me to see your form, please show it to me. Then Krishna's reply now. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Pashya me Partha Rupani Shatashotha Sahasrashaha Nana Vidhani Divyani Nana Varna Kriti Nicha. The Blessed Lord said, see my various divine forms, O Partha, of diverse hues and shapes by the hundreds and thousands. So now Krishna begins to describe. He hasn't shown him yet, but he's now giving him a preview that, okay, get ready. This is what, if and when you see me, these are the kind of things you will see. My various divine forms, because he's now showing him the universal form, the cosmic form, of diverse hues and shapes by the hundreds and thousands. Every form that we encounter in the world, living or non-living, there is God hidden behind it. There is a story I've often mentioned, and I would like to repeat it. It is said that when God created this universe, And God was so happy when that first pair of human beings that He created, God was so pleased with it, with His creation, that God said, I would like to give them a gift. And I would like to give them the best gift. And I mean, what could be better than God, really? So God said, well, if I have to give them the best gift, then I just have to give myself to these human beings that I have created. Normally when we give a gift, we give it there's a wrapping paper. When you give a birthday gift, you have a nice shining paper in which you wrap it. And so God wrapped Himself or herself into this wrapping paper of the world. Now, if someone gives you a gift, and if it's wrapped so well, and it's such an attractive wrapper, that you're really expected to open it and see what the gift is. But if the wrapper itself kind of captures your attention, and you kind of get lost in just admiring the wrapper itself, that you may forget that you're supposed to tear it open and see what's inside. And so this story is sometimes told to show that here is this world, and we are so gotten engrossed into this world, so captivated by it, that we forget that there is something wrapped inside this world. And we need to just tear it open, and then we will see nothing but God inside. And what has made that wrapping paper so attractive is really the infinite, all these things that he mentioned, the various divine forms of diverse hues and shape by hundreds and thousands. So everything that we encounter in this world has a form, has a name, has a color. And the immensity, the diversity of everything is so captivating that most of us haven't even thought that maybe there may be something deeper behind it, inside it. Now, in order for me to find what is inside it, I will have to kind of tear it apart. Now, if I just tear it physically, I'm just going to get bits of metal, this one. There's another way of tearing it apart, and that is every object has a name and a form. Can we take the name and a form of the object away from that object? What will remain? Okay, look, think about it this way. Suppose here is a chair. Is there anything else in the chair apart from the name chair and the form that it has? Does chair mean anything more than that? What would happen if I can take away the form of the chair from the chair? What will remain if I take away the form of the chair from the chair? What will remain if I take away the name chair from the chair? Or let's take another example. When you go to the beach and then you see waves coming in. Now, what is a wave? Well, wave is some water of the ocean has taken some form and is moving in a certain way. And because it has a certain form, I identified, oh, that's a wave. And somebody says, oh, that's a huge wave. It's a small wave. So it all depends on the form. Now, what does taking away the form of the wave mean? When does a wave die? Well, when the wave now, it loses its form, and then, well, there is no longer any wave. Now, when I say a wave dies, does it mean the wave has gone into non-existence? Or that which was wave is now continuing to exist in a different form. So if the wave was nothing but the ocean water with a certain form, and that is why it got a certain name, when that name and form disappeared, it just became ocean water again. So the reality of the wave is not its wave form, because that's going to vanish. The reality of the wave is not even the name. The reality is, it is a water of the ocean. And that reality will not change. Again, it might take a certain form, again it might become a wave, but while its wave identity is temporary, its ocean identity is permanent. Exactly in the same way, if you can take away the form of the chair and the name chair from it, what will remain is the ocean. What will remain is the divine being. But why only limit it to the chair? Why not look at your own self, or whatever you see as yourself now? Why do we stand before a mirror? Well, because there is some form we see in the mirror. And if what we see in the mirror pleases us, we are happy, because we think, well, that's I see myself in a mirror. But really what I'm seeing in a mirror is just this body, right? So if now, just like the wave, just like the chair, my form, well, body has a form. What form does your mind have? So all of these forms that are associated with my identity are taken away from me. In some way, death is a way in which you have abandoned the form of the body. Because the body is still lying lifeless, you have become free from it. So if we become free from the form in which we exist and the various names that we have, well, all of us have hundreds of names. Besides the names that was given to you when you were born, we have additional names. Names associated in many different ways. Names affirming our gender. We can say, I'm a man, I'm a woman. We have names affirming our relationships. We could say, I'm a son, I'm a daughter, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a father, I'm a mother. So simultaneously, we all have many names. And of course, if you have a political identity, well, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, well, that's another name. Or I'm a Sox fan, I'm a Yankees fan. Again, that's another name. So we all have hundreds of names. So if you can kind of free yourself from all those names, free yourself from all the forms, what will remain is the ocean. What will remain is your true identity. And what Krishna is doing here is trying to take us back to that true identity. I think we will stop here at this verse 5, and then we will continue when we meet next week. So this is just the kind of the prologue, the beginning, and the great vision, the great vision of that cosmic form that will come in the subsequent verses. But just keep this in mind, that after having described that the divine manifests through every little thing in the universe, Arjuna has a desire now to see the divine in its cosmic form. He asks Krishna whether it's possible to see, and obviously the way Krishna begins describing, you know that he's going to be given that great opportunity to see that cosmic form. So now Krishna is describing what he can expect to see. And as we will proceed, we will see what exactly happens. So whatever we have discussed up to this point, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, you're welcome. Okay, so then we can do another couple of verses. Verse 6. Pashyadityan vasun rudran Ashvinau marutas tatham Bahunya drishtapurvani Pashyascharyani bharata. See the Adityas, the Vasus, the Rudras, the two Ashwins and the Maruts. See many wonderful forms never seen before or descendant of Bharata. So you can see all of these names, many of these names appear in chapter 10. So Krishna is saying all of these beings, the celestial beings in other celestial worlds and the beings of this world, all of these you can see in this universal form of mind. Verse 7. Ihaikastham jagat kritsnam Pashyadya sacharacharam Mama dehe gudakesha Yacchanyaddrashtumichasi. See this day the entire universe with movable and immovable objects united here in this my body, O Gudakesha, and anything else that you like to see. The last phrase is very significant. Anything else that you like to see. You might remember earlier in the second chapter, Arjuna had expressed his, like, well, what is the use of fighting the war if we win, if they win, or if we win, and so on. So he seems a little bit ambivalent. Many of the students of the Gita feel that Arjuna, brave as he was, wasn't exactly sure that they are going to win. For one thing, on the other side, there were some really great warriors. The commander-in-chief of the Kauravas was one who had the boon to die at will. His own teacher was on the other side. So people who are superior to him in fighting, in archery, were there on the other side. And the enemy strength, the number of soldiers on the Kaurava side was also much, much greater. So the outcome in Arjuna's mind was not certain at all. And so here, Krishna, in probably not so subtle a hint, is telling him anything else you like to see. If you are uncertain about, well, what will happen in this war? Are we going to win? Are we going to lose? Who is going to survive? Who is going to die? Well, now you're seeing this cosmic form. See, you might be able to see what is going to happen. There is a story sometimes told that one washerman, and these washermen in India in the olden days, I don't know, nowadays probably they don't do it so much, used to go and wash their they're washermen, so they would collect clothes and put them they had all, usually they used donkeys, put them and took them to the river, washed the clothes, and then brought them back, and so on. So here this one washerman who lost his donkey and searched everywhere, couldn't find it. And so there was a small wooded area near his place. So he thought he might get a better view of the place, and so he climbed up on top of a tree and was trying to see if he could see his donkey had strayed someplace else. And then the story goes on to say that a pair of lovers came and they just sat under the tree. And they didn't know there was this washerman on top there. And so this young man looks at his beloved, and looks in her eyes and says, "Your eyes are so beautiful. I can see a whole universe in your eyes." And this poor washerman who is on top, he just says, "Oh, please, can you see my donkey is missing? If you can find my donkey somewhere." So here, well, what a simile I'm giving, but here, Krishna is showing this universal form. So he says, anything else you like to see or what the outcome of the war is going to be, you can take a look here. And then one more verse and then we stop. Natu mam shakyase drashtum anenaiva svachakshusham divyam dadami te chakshuhu pashyame yogamaishwaram. But you will not be able to see me just with these eyes of yours. I am giving unto you the celestial eye. Behold my divine miracle. And then of course he will kiss. So the important point here is called Divya Chakshu, the celestial eye, the divine eye. In other words, a question that can be asked is, when people see visions, when they have a spiritual experience, when they see divine forms, there have been devotees of Krishna, for instance, who have heard the sound of Krishna's playing on the flute. So sometimes in our spiritual practice, as we advance, sometimes these kind of experiences might come. You might see things, you might hear a melodious sound, you might get some different fragrances. All these experiences can come. The question is, all the things that we see in the vision or the sounds that we hear, are they heard through these ears, these eyes, or through some other eyes? And that's the significance here. What Krishna is mentioning here is, you cannot see me through this eye. In order to see me, you have to develop a different pair of eyes. And Krishna says, I will give you those different pair of eyes. So when we can see that in the life of Ramakrishna, oftentimes he would be sitting and he would go into samadhi and he would see the Divine Mother. And he would say, oh, here I'm able to see the Divine Mother everywhere. Now, if Ramakrishna saw the Divine Mother through these regular eyes, then other people sitting in the room should also have seen it, right? Because, well, the eye is an eye is an eye. So if one pair of eyes can see it, the other pair of eyes should also have seen it. But there was things which Ramakrishna could see, but others around couldn't see. Obviously, there was some different eyes that he was seeing them through. There are people who hear what's called the anahata dhvani, the unstruck sound, the sound. So when we chant Om, so there is the Om, the real Om sound is continually going on. And we can hear it, but not through these ears. But there are, in certain advanced stages, many of the mystics have heard, sometimes called the music of the spheres, this great sound. In fact, one of our Swamis, whom I have not met, he passed away 2 or 3 years before I joined the order. He was a disciple of Holy Mother. And I've heard from the other senior monks that he could continuously hear the sound of Om. And he was so childlike that oftentimes it took a while for him to realize that everyone's not hearing it. He would sometimes say, are you able to hear it? And then people were like, no. But he would continuously hear it. So I mention all this to show that Sri Ramakrishna, you will find it in his conversations. He says that seekers of God develop a whole different sets of the senses, the sense of seeing. It's a whole different thing. Once that different sense comes, then you can see, then you can hear. Now there is, of course, a lot of scope here for if you are not careful, for self-deception. So not everything that you see or everything that you hear should we automatically jump to the conclusion, oh, I have had some great spiritual experience? It's always helpful to be a little skeptical about all the experiences that you have had. I say this because if it's a genuine experience, then being skeptical about it is not going to eliminate that experience. But if it's not a genuine experience, then being skeptical about it is being just seeing reality as it is. Because oftentimes we may not immediately be able to recognize whether an experience is genuine or only my imagination. And so the ultimate test of progress in spiritual life is not how many kinds of spiritual experiences we have had, but how much my life has really been transformed. That's the test. So if I have seen lots of visions and I've pretty much remained the same person with same fears and anxieties and jealousies and selfishness and biases and prejudices, then very likely my experiences were really not real experiences. Because every genuine spiritual experience will bring about a real transformation. And that's why it's always helpful to be a little skeptical about experiences. And that's the practical way to go. Okay, so we stop here today. But again, I give you another chance. If you have any questions or thoughts or ideas, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. Swami, I just thought about when we started a few years ago, this stage when Arjuna asked, was a situation where I need to fight. So I just recall this beginning of this war, why it was fought for. And do you understand, right? So it was fought to protect Dharma, right? Dharma. To protect Dharma, this war was fought, right? Right? And I said, what is it? I asked myself, what is it to protect Dharma? What is it? So
Dharma. Okay.
Dharma, yes, I understand that it's to protect what is ethical, what is, we can describe high development of human being. So what is most precious in life? Because nowadays it's so easy, just see country, just a fight, war, just without much thinking even. So I think Arjuna asked. So we start today again. Arjuna, should I do? Should I not do? Because it's terrible. And I'm very glad that I'm very thankful to him that he was thinking what I'm doing. And because it's definitely, war is a terrible thing.
Hold it closer.
War is a terrible thing. And I mean, how wise should be Krishna to process all the situation, understand that it's, yes, we have no choice, we have to fight. So because if we know if there is chance to avoid war, so we should avoid war. But if he understood it's no way, we have to do it. And I just saw that you told that some teachers that even great figures was on the side of Kauravas. How great they were that they didn't have any discernment to understand that they protect unethical side. They didn't have this discernment. They were not able to process the situation. but Krishna was able. So I'm just think about all the situation now, because it's happened inside us, and mostly that's it. I just wonder how great is Krishna to feel in his heart that yes, we need to do it, and that it's time, we have no choice, and this is the right thing to do. Also, it's terrible, but it's right. Mostly about this.
Yeah, no, that's right. War is, as we have seen, never a pretty choice. If there is a choice between what is right and what is wrong, then of course we must do what's right. But sometimes in life, there may not be such a clear-cut choice. If we can avoid war, that's fine. But if you cannot avoid it, then what you can do is you choose, make a choice which will produce, which is less bad than the other one. So if you have to choose between what is worse, what is bad and what is worse, then you choose what is bad, not because it is good, but there is no other choice. So it's as they say, that if something can be saved and not saved, if there is a choice between saving something and not saving something, then of course you should save it. But if there is a choice between saving 50% or losing entirely, you say, well, save 50, the other 50 let go. So it's essentially like that. So Krishna is not really advocating war. Krishna is just saying, in this situation, you don't have a choice. Not fighting the war will lead to worse results. And that is why you need to do it. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah. Based on what I think you said in the starting with the names and forms, it is my guess that is it possible to explain what Arjuna saw with all the words and names and forms in the rest of the chapter? I don't think it is possible. It is only for our own imagination to think about what God would be. Because whatever he might explain is something, either a name or a form again. Maybe a big thing or a small thing, it can be gigantic, but it is impossible to put it into words.
That's true. All descriptions, whether it's a description that Krishna gives, or a description that Arjuna gives, or the description found anywhere in books, the only form of communication we have is language, where you're going to use words. And communicating through words, through language, is not necessarily the best form of communication. But again, a better way would be a direct communication. For instance, a thought comes to my mind, and if I can communicate my thought directly to your mind, that is a much more efficient way of communicating than words. Because words is a very indirect way of doing it. Essentially what's happening right now. So even now, so when I'm speaking and you're listening, what is exactly happening? Like this. So there are certain thoughts in my mind. So my thoughts, I am putting my thoughts into words. Those words, I'm uttering those words. You are hearing that sound, right? So now that sound is being processed inside. Your auditory nerves are taking that sound, and because you understand the language, those sounds now, that sound is being converted into ideas, and then is being converted into thoughts. So thoughts, ideas, words, sound, and back into. So it's a very, very indirect process. And so communicating through language is the best we can do right now. But some of these greatest teachers, oftentimes you will see that in Ramakrishna's conversations and others, he would encourage people to discuss. He said, come on. And then he would just sit and listen others talking. And then sometime when they have kind of discussed a lot, and then Ramakrishna rarely gave big lectures or gave discourses. He would then just go and then just kind of pat somebody on the back. And then you see, we see in the case of Narendra, for instance, who later became Vivekananda, Ramakrishna just goes and just kind of touches him. And then he says, the whole thing changed. Everything kind of dissolved. So some of these greatest of teachers, they're able to impart that insight, impart that teaching, not through words. Sometimes it could be just through touch. Sometimes it's just through seeing. So there are more efficient ways of teaching than through words. In fact, it's very unlikely that even whether Krishna taught Arjuna through words. As we have seen, just from a very practical standpoint, 700 verses is a pretty big thing. And they're right in the middle of a battlefield. The conches have already been blown. Thousands and thousands of soldiers are waiting. There is no time for an hour-long or a 2-hour-long discussion to take place there. So, according to many, and plus, of course, if it was this, these are the words that Krishna spoke, there wasn't, no one was taping it. There wasn't anybody sitting there taking notes. And so the views of many students of the Gita is that it's possible that Arjuna expressed his doubts to Krishna of what he said in the beginning. It's like, oh, I don't want to fight, this is terrible, my own people are there. And then Krishna may have given him some teaching, maybe in a couple of minutes or 5 minutes. And again, so it was not just the words that Krishna spoke. There is a lot of the insights Krishna would have imparted either through touch or through just seeing, just through sight. Now, then the Gita would have been just like one sheet long and we wouldn't have understood anything of what had exactly transpired. And that's why we see Vyasa, the great teacher. He then meditated on what exactly transpired between the two. What is the insight that Krishna gave to Arjuna? And that profound insight, which may not have taken more than a few minutes, then Vyasa composed it in this form. And so students of the Gita don't have to be fanatical about like, these are the exact word that Krishna spoke. We don't know, and it's not even important. The idea is that teaching can be given in a more efficient way than words. Okay? Yeah. So we will stop here at this point, and then feel free to think about what we have discussed today, and then we will continue the discussion and this chapter when we meet next Wednesday. Om Jananim Saratam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhuhu. We bow down to Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. Again and again. On Sunday, we will have Antar Yoga at 11 as usual, special program with prayer, music, readings by members and reflection, followed by, of course, soup for everyone, and we will celebrate the birthdays of everyone, all who were born in the month of September. So if you were born in September or any of your friends or family, bring them along. We'll have a big giant cake for that one. So that's on Sunday. Next Wednesday, we will continue with the study of the Gita, and Tuesday and Saturday, meditations and arati also will continue as usual. So you're welcome for all of these programs. We'll conclude with a prayer now on page 3. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.